Okay, it's home inspection day. Do you know what to expect? My name is Sean Larson. I'm a real estate broker, and we are going to talk a little bit about home inspections today. I talk a lot about home inspections, so you're going to see a collection of videos on that, but this is just a little bit about what actually happens on the day of. So we're going to assume that you have a home under contract and you were allowed or permitted in the agreement to do some home inspections. You have scheduled that. And hopefully that is at the beginning of your timeline after the contract was accepted. So you've arranged all the inspectors that you need, and that might include a general, maybe an HVAC, a roofer, however many you need. Might include a pest inspection, whether that be bugs or rodents. You may also be having a radon inspection as part of that too. So let's just assume you've got all of those arranged. Ideally, it's nice to have as many arranged on one day as you can, because that's more convenient to the buyer, that's more convenient to the seller. It just works well for everybody, as long as the inspectors aren't on top of each other. Now keep in mind, if you have a radon inspection coming, that's going to take probably about 48 hours or so, so there'll be another pickup or an early drop off of the meter on that. But ideally, you can have everybody aligned for one day. And if it's a smaller home or not elaborate features or something like that, you might only have one or two inspectors. You might only have a general and maybe a pest inspector or something like that, and that may be pretty easy to arrange. But let's assume you have all that underway. We're assuming this isn't for a piece of property, because the due diligence period for a piece of property is different as well. You've got soil tests and things like that. So we are speaking here of just a general home on a residential lot type of inspection. So what's going to happen on that day? Well, you've got the inspectors showing up. Who else is going to be present? Well, there might be some agents present. Your buyer's representative might be present. You can be present if you like. It doesn't always happen. A lot of times people will select inspectors that they are just fully confident in, and nobody attends except for the inspector. Now, a lot of the inspectors have access codes to homes, much like real estate agents do, because they're registered with the MLS so they can access the homes. So sometimes nobody else is present. It could be that the home is being purchased from distance and the buyer isn't even in the same town. So who attends on your inspection day? That is up to you. It's going to vary on a per case basis. So you might be there, the inspectors are there. What happens? Well, the inspector is going to spend anywhere from maybe a couple hours to maybe all day there. It depends on the type of property you're working with. What are you going to do during that time? So let's assume that you want to attend the inspection. Have a talk with your agent and maybe the inspector to see how that works with them. Because here's what you don't want to do. The inspectors go in and they want to focus on the property, because after all, that's what you're hiring them for. So most inspectors don't really want a follow-along process. So most of them are not looking for the buyer to follow along with them during the inspection process. One, it's going to take longer, and most importantly, it's going to distract them. And after all, you're hiring them to look at the home. So the last thing you're going to want to do is distract them from their job. So they don't really want to work, most in my experience, don't really want to work in the tag-along method. They do want to communicate with you though. So a lot of times they will offer kind of like a summary session toward the end of the inspection. Now, whether you want to be on site early, that's kind of up to you and them. A lot of times they will alert you, send you a message or a notification, hey, we're about 30 minutes from wrapping up. Do you want to come and we can have a summary? So that's something to look at too and see if your inspector offers that. So the inspection gets done. What happens then? Well, nowadays there's a ton of software involved. So what's going to usually happen is a general home inspector is going to take all the data that was accumulated on site, and they're going to go back and plug it into software. So the data, that's going to include notes. They might be voice dictating some things to themselves. They may be taking pictures of everything, and they're going to load that into an inspection software program. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate a report for you. And I will give you the same heads up that I give every buyer client of mine. That report is going to be big. And no matter how much I reinforce that to my buyer clients, and they take me seriously, they are still overwhelmed by the presentation of that package. Because you might be getting it in paper, you might be getting it in PDF, but it might range from 30 to 100 pages. Is there that much wrong with the home? No. What happens is when you load it all in software, the pictures, the way they're formatted in the report, they might have taken a picture and that ended up taking a full page. It might not have been formatted to a little picture that just takes up a piece of the page. Another thing is the software they use, that tends to interject home maintenance tips and things like that. So what started out as a simple report can become very large very quickly. And yes, it is intimidating. So even the people that I really reinforce that to, and they think they've all got it under control, and they see 85 pages drop in their lap in an PDF format, it's a little overwhelming, because your first impression is the home that we have a contract on is a dump. And you just think there are so many things wrong with it. And you really just need to prepare yourself for that as a buyer. And so what the report does is it usually, most of the softwares are pretty similar. It's going to usually detail things throughout the report. A lot of times the inspector will go ahead and rank them as well. Sometimes they'll have a different code on there, whether it's using colors or numbers or whatever it is, that will kind of let you know where it ranks on the importance scale. And then toward the end of the report, there's going to be a summary. And that's where it grabbed all of that data and just compacted it into a nice, tidy summary at the end. So a lot of times it's best to maybe refer to the summary first and then go read the whole report, because the report is going to kind of have the substantiating information for the summary. And that might be a little easier to digest that way. And like I say, the number of pages is going to vary. It can be 10, 30, 100, but it can be overwhelming, and people think they are ready for it, and they are not. So just a heads up on that. So after they deliver the report, that's going to be up to you, the buyer, to then process the results of that. If you do not understand any of it, I find most inspectors are happy to explain as much as they can about it. You can reach out to other sources as well. You're going to want to reach out to experts. You can consult with your agent as well. Anybody who is not in the specific industry that you're asking about, they might have a limit on how much they're going to discuss or make recommendations, because they don't want to step out of their zone. Everybody's got a zone they work in, and so everybody's going to have a limit on how far out they're going to go, because they don't want to become the expert in an area that they're not. So feel free to consult with anybody in a specific aspect of a home. The inspector, a lot of times, if it's outside of their zone, they might have been able to determine whether there was an issue, but they may not be an expert in how to resolve it. So sometimes they can provide resources on who to call about that. So the inspector is an awesome resource for that. So that's a little bit about what happens on inspection day. They can be very different on who attends, the length of time they take, but the process itself is very similar in most regions. After that, you process it and determine whether those results are favorable to you, and then you will then just act according to your contract terms. If you have a negotiation written in there where you can go back to the seller and perhaps propose some repairs or something like that, go ahead and determine the course of action and take that. If your contract doesn't, well, it might be that it's time to decide whether that's the home for you or not, if your agreement allows for any termination clauses or such. So go ahead and process that. That's what happens on inspection day. They can vary a little bit, but if you have any questions about what you're going to encounter, maybe your first time home buyer and you kind of want to know what it's going to be like, give me a shout. I'll be happy to answer any questions about how that goes. We have other videos on inspections, because like I say, you can talk a lot about inspections because it's a pretty major part of a home purchase and a home sale. So let me know if I can help out. My name again is Sean Larson, real estate broker. I hope you have a super day.